Hi, my name's Susan Rushton, as you can tell, and this is Muse. Before I go any further, I need to explain what Muse is. This is the show I get to. I'm thrilled to. I'm delighted to. I'm honored to talk to people who have been sucked in by the Muse, one Muse or the other. This time it is Konstantin Soukhovetski. Konstantin, I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you, Susan.
It's always a pleasure. And Konstantin is three things. He's a pianist, a composer, and an educator. And as I'm talking to you, this is October 3rd, 2024. And on October 5 and October 6, he is going to be working with the Auburn Symphony's Masterworks 1. And I hope you didn't miss it. I hope you didn't miss it. I'm going to see it on Sunday and I can hardly wait. He's going to do two things. One is you're going to play a little bit about your symphony, play a little bit of your symphony called your first symphony, Once Upon a Spring, and you and the symphony are also going to play Rhapsody in Blue. And I get chills thinking about it. I love that. So you have created your own symphony.
Yes.
When did it start?
It started just about a year ago.
A year, only a year.
Well, I call it sinfonietta, right? So it's a short symphony. It is 8 minutes, and it's a single movement piece. And it was commissioned by my esteemed colleague Paulina Nazaikinska, a wonderful composer and a dear friend. And she was at the time a music director of Greater Connecticut Youth Symphony Orchestras, and they commissioned me this piece for the youth orchestra, and it's
a youth orchestra. Okay.
Well, it was initially commissioned for the youth orchestra. What Auburn Symphony is playing here this weekend is a second edition of it, which I beefed up a little bit for grown-ups.
Okay. Yeah. Writing it is the tough part. Getting it better is the fun part.
Well, all of it is fun and tough at the same time, because I don't play, percussion. I don't play timpani or horn, so I have to really study and speak with players, with musicians about how they play all these wonderful instruments that I love the sound of, but I don't really play myself.
Yeah.
So it is an endeavor. I mean, every composer who writes for an orchestra goes through that.
Tell me how did that sound? Would this be better? How can I make it better?
Right. Well, I mean, you have to envision the sound, the totality of the sound. So in my head, I can sort of hear what I would like the music to ultimately sound like, and then you looking at the score or computer screen, and there are 14 or 16 parts, and you have to sort of say, well, so now how do I distribute all this vision amongst these instruments, which colors? And some things are very obvious, strings versus woodwinds or brass, we all know those sounds, and they're in a way easier to assign in your imagination. But what am I going to do with a triangle? Where do I
listen
employ,
to it?
Right. Where do I use a suspended cymbal or a snare drum? Do you know? Those kinds of details are challenging, but it's also a creatively very rewarding.
Phil is agreeing with you. That means you're right.
Right. It's very rewarding when you realize, oh yes, my hunch was right. This sounds good. And sometimes you listen to it and you say, my hunch was not right. So let's redo it.
Okay.
And that's hence second edition. It's always, when you hear the first performance of something, you instantly get an idea of what can be better. And at some point you have to be able to put it away, so
and
I don't
wait and think.
Right, or just let it live its own life and let it be. I'm super curious to hear how Auburn Symphony will play my symphony in this second reincarnation.
Okay.
And if I will just say, well, that's it. Or whether I will say, oh, maybe I should revise this or that.
Okay.
Because I haven't heard it yet.
Oh, okay. Why did you call it Once Upon a Spring?
Well, because I wanted to embody something youthful, since it was a commission by a youth symphony.
Okay.
And I kind of took it literally, because they said, oh, we want something, because young people are going to be playing it, and you want young people to really be excited about playing music.
Yeah.
I didn't want them to sort of say, "Oh my God, I have to play this new piece.
It's so
difficult
hard.
or somber or hard." I mean, it's not easy, So you have to build in a reward.
No matter what, it's not easy.
Right.
Yeah.
So I thought psychologically, if I'm asking them to practice it, right? If I'm giving them the new music they have to learn, that requires a certain amount of effort and skill and time put into it, there should be a reward at the end of it. And I wanted it to sound very youthful, very positive, and very soundtrack-ish in a good way, sort of something that is very easily narrative.
Oh, nice.
For some people it'll be cinema that comes to mind. When I was composing it, I thought about, Italian movies from the 70s. But likewise, a 16-year-old, so
They're
I
not
was
gonna
told.
think about that.
Well, they thought about a video game,
Yeah.
and they thought that it sounded like a soundtrack to their favorite video game. So I mean, that's what you want. You want people to relate to it on a personal level. So that's why I wanted to call it Once Upon a Spring. I wanted it to have this almost a fairy tale quality. Once upon a time.
Oh, cool.
And at the same time, something very concrete, because it's a music. It's an F major. It's a very spring key. It just hasn't lift to it.
Yeah. Are you working on another?
I'm working on another composition, not a symphony.
Okay.
Yet. I'm in a process of extending the Pride Suite, which is probably, to me, as a composer, most important.
What is it called?
The Pride Suite.
And that's?
It's the Pride for the Pride flag, right? So it's a suite that represents LGBTQ flag.
Okay. Yeah.
I wanted to compose something for myself as a pianist, right? So it's a piano solo music, so I don't have to wonder what to do with celesta. And
you don't have to wait for somebody else to do something.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to write something for myself that has an extra musical meaning. That I'm not just writing nice things and sounds, but something that bears
means
meaning
something to you. Yeah.
and represents something that I'm just a part of. I'm part of the community, but it's us, from sort of capital U. So I wanted to make sure that as a musician, as a composer, I create some kind of a representation that way. And I've written the basic emoji flag that is 6 stripes, right?
Okay.
6 rainbow stripes. But the current flag that is LGBTQ plus is total of 11 colors. So there are 5 more to go.
Okay.
And the 5 more is what I'm working on developing right now,
Okay.
and it's going to be completed this year.
Oh, neat. Well, good.
Thank you.
That's great. So, I neglected to share a couple of things with you. His website is konstantinthepianist.com. konstantinthepianist.com. So take a look at that. It's quite a good website. It's fascinating. So again, you're working on, you're going to play Once Upon a Spring, and you're also going to join them in Rhapsody in Blue.
Yes.
Did they call you? Did you call them? Or how did you get happening?
Right. Well, first of all, I have to say right away that I actually am not playing Once Upon a Spring. The orchestra is playing it. I'm just going to sit in the audience and hope that everybody likes it.
I thought it was a piano piece.
No. Once Upon a Spring is just for symphony.
Okay.
Orchestra. I'm not involved in performing it. That's one of the things about. That's one of the wonderful
things. So this
about
isn't the me thing.
No. As a composer, you have to be able to create music that isn't involving you. as well as, I mean, I wrote the Pride Suite for myself, so then I get to be center stage.
Yes.
But with Once Upon a Spring can be, you know, when it was premiered in Connecticut, I wasn't even there. I was in Florida.
Ah.
So it's like Beethoven writing his symphonies, right?
Okay.
He doesn't have to be in the room.
All right.
And so it can live without you on its own. So I will just sit there and hope everybody likes it. And you know, and try to relax and enjoy. But I will be soloing with Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue.
Okay.
Which is a wonderful piece, and actually Ryan and I played it together about a decade ago at Music in the Mountains, the festival
really?
here locally. And
I love this. Oh,
and you know,
yeah,
it's been 20 years of collaboration with Auburn Symphony.
Good.
For me since my debut here. I think it was 2003 or 4. I'm not sure, but it was a lifetime ago. So
Yeah.
it feels like it,
Yeah.
you know. And so we collaborated with the orchestra a number of many times over the years, and you know, every once in a while I get a phone call and I see 530 zip code.
Wonderful.
Sorry, zip area code.
Yeah, yeah.
And I can kind of tell how the conversation is going to go.
I'm happy about that. That's wonderful. What do you like best about Rhapsody in Blue?
Well, I like the fact that it's a DNA of American music. I mean, it's just universally recognized. You know, it's like playing an American flag,
Okay.
basically. It's almost a national anthem, I would say. You know, unofficial national anthem.
Good.
It's everywhere. Everywhere you go. I mean, of course, it's in Fantasia, but United Airlines, I think. You know, right? It's just part of people's.
It's a fabulous piece of music.
Acoustical oral experience of what American music sounds like.
Okay, good. All right. So, do you play other Gershwin music?
I played his songs with singers, yes, absolutely. I played excerpts from Porgy and Bess, you know, the extraordinary opera. I don't play the piano concerto. Maybe I'll learn it one day. I love his music, but as a pianist myself, I mainly played Rhapsody in Blue in orchestral version and in 2-piano version. So I
okay.
played it with another pianist.
I wish he had lived longer. Man.
Oh yeah, we can say that about many wonderful composers, right?
Yeah. Okay. I need to show you guys something, and you're going to see it better later. I want to show you this. This is a wonderful picture. This is Konstantin in the middle, and I saw that and I fell in love. Mainly, well, not with you, because I'm already in love with you. What I love so much is that you're surrounded by children, surrounded, and they seem thrilled to be there. They're having a kick being surrounded by you, and this is because he is in charge of education and community engagement with Grand Piano Series. And Grand Piano Series is a great website, grandpianoseries.org, and you can find that picture, grandpianoseries.org/support-us. And you get to see all those children, and you also get to see Konstantin. What is that? What is that organization?
Well, it's a remarkable organization that presents the world-class classical music in performance setting, but has a robust educational program that I get to be in charge of. So, you know, it's kind of, to me, a marriage of two of the most important things that are meaningful in my life and that I think are important in our society today is music and art as form of communication, and also education, music education, ability to inspire young people, children in this case, kids, to be exposed to music and to fall in love with this. You know, nobody has to become a professional musician at the end of the day.
Nobody
perhaps
has to
somebody
do what
will.
you do.
Right, as a job. But if you don't have it in your life, if it's not something you interact with or live with, then you just don't know what you're missing. And
Yeah.
then people are saying, well, you know, people aren't interested. Well, it's not that they aren't interested. They haven't been given a chance to get interested.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're doing at Grand Piano Series is we're creating these programs that serve particularly Title I schools in our local area, in Collier and Lee counties.
So you said Title I?
Title I
What
schools.
does that mean?
That means that these are predominantly low-income communities that these are public schools that have very limited access to you know, resources or specialized education or music education of a, you know, a particular content. And what we do is we bring to them at no cost to school these programs where they get to, I bring all of our artists who come from all over the world to perform concerts. They go with me to these schools and we do presentations. They're more like a performance kinds of events. I do educational interactive sessions with kids where you know, this is an ongoing basis, weekly sort of an after school, where they get to actually learn to differentiate certain styles, you know, say classical from romantic, and learn about composers and hopefully take that into their lives with them. And so that picture is actually from one of our partner schools after one of the presentations
Oh,
that
how
I've done.
lovely. That's wonderful. I am so impressed. And it means so much. Because when you get them when they're young and encourage them, and most of the time, most of them will know how to figure out how to play something. I tell everybody this, that I grew up in a musical household and I left not knowing how to count. But that's a nice one. That's a nice one, but I can't count, and I wish I could.
Right, and it's easier to instill at an earlier
Yes.
age, and on an ongoing basis. You know, anything that you do repeatedly, even if it's a couple of times, already makes a huge difference.
Absolutely.
Right, so having that not just once a year, but having that weekly or bi-weekly or monthly,
Yes.
is what creates awareness, and then it kind of it becomes part of your makeup, part of your
Yes.
body, so to speak,
Part of
the
your life.
rhythm
Yeah,
of the music. You know, it's very easy. Music is divided into two kinds of beats. There are 3 beats, and there is so-called common time, which is 2 or 4. Right, so it's either 2 or it's 3, right? And really, that's well, there are compound meters too, but we're not going to get too complicated. But you know, and then also it encourages different relationship with yourself. Like the first presentation this year I just did a couple of weeks ago in Bonita Springs Elementary, and this one
in
gal,
Florida.
yeah, that's in Florida. That's in the Naples area.
Yeah.
It's a town next to Naples called Bonita Springs, and you know, there are, you know, a few hundred kids are in the room, and it's simulcast throughout the school, so the entirety of the school is watching it. And you know, I was doing my thing and playing on the piano and talking and whatever, and then this one gal just got up and wanted to play in front of everybody else. You know, that takes enormous courage. I mean,
Yes.
people are generally scared of public performances, right? And to see, and children are too, but this is the moment where they haven't developed that fear yet, right? This when
Yeah.
society tells you to judge yourself,
Yeah.
to, you know, make sure you're good or whatever. And so just to spontaneously get up and say, oh yeah, I like to play the piano, I have a song I want to play, right? It takes enormous amount of candid courage that is untainted by the you know, burden of understanding of the repercussions of what might happen.
Yeah.
And seeing that, I mean, she was the only one who did it, but everybody else watched it, right? And I hope that those other kids
Wow,
will
she can
likewise do that.
Maybe
you know,
I can do that.
precisely.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants to copy what the other one is doing.
Yeah.
So, you know, hopefully in the next month, more people will say, oh, I have a song I want to play too. You know, because that is what unlocks human potential. And
Yeah.
that is where performing arts are, in a way, the most positive way to do it. Because, you know, no one's... What's the worst that can happen? So you forget the song. big deal.
You mean you might make a mistake?
Right.
Yeah.
You know, when it's your job, it's a different level of scrutiny, right? It's a different level of professionalism. But when you're a child, you know, that fear needn't be there. So you forget it. You start all over again.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So, why are you a musician?
Because it gives me meaning. Because it's a meaningful thing to do with my life, I feel.
When did you start?
I started when I was that age. I mean, 4 or 5.
Yeah.
You know, before I can recall myself fully.
Was it always the piano?
Yeah. With me, it was all, well, as far as music is concerned. I started acting in the theater when I was a teenager professionally, and as a child I did ballet and all sorts of things. But music was piano was my instrument. I never, tried learning violin or cello.
Okay. Why the piano?
Well, we had one. And my grandmother.
There it was. So that was easy.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's easy. It's a proximity. It's another one of these things. It's there. If it's there, you're going to use it, right? And my grandmother played, my mom played, and it was just kind of part of our family's, pastime.
Yeah.
And I suppose I had a propensity because my parents wanted me to be a painter. My whole family are pretty famous and well-recognized visual artists. So, and I'm an older son for them, right? I have a younger sister. So when I was born, they thought I was going to take over the dynasty.
Of course
and, and be a
but
painter.
Then there was this piano.
Yeah, but I had to sort of convince them to let me play the piano because they would have made me painter otherwise.
Okay.
Usually you have to convince people you have to play the piano so that they don't want you to become a doctor. But in my case, they wanted me to be painter.
Mm-hmm. But have you done any painting?
I can, yeah. I mean, they still made me kind of learn how to do it. It's a wonderful thing, and I think maybe I will at some point do that more often. But not in a professional way.
But you don't have the time to do that.
No. There's only so much time that you can do it. And I enjoy painting. I grew up surrounded by them. My father's artwork is on Russia's postage stamps and in museums, and my mom and my sister. So they're so good that I feel sort of inadequate if I were like painting myself.
Yeah.
But why not?
The piano is your painting.
Well, yeah. But sometimes you have to do something totally different to just relax. So we'll see.
Okay. How long have you been in Florida?
Since January of this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
You moved there from New York.
Yeah.
Okay. Specifically to be involved with Grand Piano Series?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, to start my position as a director of education and community engagement.
Okay. So, but that doesn't mean, just because you live in Florida, that doesn't mean you aren't going up to New York.
No, I'm on a faculty at Juilliard, so in the extension division. So every once in a while.
What does that mean, extension?
It's a continued education, lifetime learning. So it's not a college credited classes. So I teach one course a semester, and usually these are courses that I create, and I teach them online. Actually, on Zoom, but every once in a while I do sessions in person, so I come up to New York, of course, do that, and my sister and her family live in New Jersey, just across the bridge.
Yeah.
I have a wonderful 3.5-year-old niece, and, and I own my place in New York. I rented it out now, but, I've lived in New York for 26 years.
Yeah.
It's a part of me, it's my home, but we live in a beautiful time in history where one doesn't belong to one specific place. I think the world is bigger than that. And I've been to Naples so many times over the years. Many of my friends and colleagues have lived there. As a matter of fact, the Grand Piano Series is started by my Juilliard friend, we were students together, right? So I've come down there to do educational programs and perform before I moved there to take a position. So I knew sort of where I'm going, and it was wonderful. I always wanted to try to experience life in paradise by the beach, because that is sort of what it is. I live 10 minutes from one of the best beaches in the world.
Cool.
And, the weather is always good. And
Sometimes it's windy.
well, yeah, you can say that again.
Yeah. Gee. So I see adjunct faculty at the Juilliard School, which is a big deal. Oh, my.
It's an amazing place.
And you are artistic director of the Liliane Questel recital series.
Yes.
What does that mean?
That's in the Hamptons. And it's a series I inaugurated.
And for those of us who are in way out here, so close to Sacramento, that we might not know that, what is the Hamptons?
Well, forgive me for assuming everybody knows what the Hamptons are known, just because it's like the Riviera, right? It is kind of an East Coast Riviera in the United States.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal. It's a South Fork of Long Island, of East End of Long Island. So it's the end of
Way
Long
out
Island.
there,
yeah, ends in Montauk, and then there's Norway across the pond. And so it is, with the elite meet. It is where the New York Society
with wonderful music.
Right.
Yeah.
And so New York Society sort of has summer homes there, and these are like Beverly Hills. They're mansions, and it's a very beautiful place to be. It's not real world, in the sense that when you look around, it seems that everybody has a Rolls Royce and everybody has a beachfront house, but it's a thing. So it's because of the concentration of wealth. And sort of the power brokers of the world are there. People, there are movies made about it, TV shows, etc. So people know the Hamptons as sort of the place to be. I know the Hamptons as a great artistic community. I was involved with the Hamptons through Piano Fest in the Hamptons, where I was a student starting year 2000. So I was there, 25 summers. As a student, because there's a very vibrant community of visual artists. Pollock was there, de Kooning. I mean, all these Chihuly, all these amazing artists.
All these people I don't recognize.
They're painters, and Chihuly is a glass artist. He has these glass things that look like sort of creatures from another planet.
And musicians.
And Chihuly is famous, for the Bellagio in Las Vegas. The ceiling, the glass work in the Bellagio is all Chihuly. And it's frightfully expensive now, but he was once a scholarship sort of supported student who was incubating there. And so Hamptons has this long history of being a retreat for artists before it became the hotspot for the glitterati. And I was a student at Piano Fest, then artist in resident at Piano Fest, then I joined the board of Southampton Cultural Center. And in it, Liliane Questel started a concert series. She was a pianist herself. She passed away this year, unfortunately. And she was a brilliant pianist with a career herself, and she started the series to promote young talents and bring them to the Hamptons. And I played the very first concert. I inaugurated it 21 years ago. And then I helped her run it, so I was managing director.
Wow.
Just on a wave, negotiating, writing contracts. And then...
And you played.
Well, and I played, but once you start, how many concerts can you play in one series, right? So I played like once every 7 years or so, but...
because there were so many others.
Well, because also you don't want to be... I am very aware of conflict of interest and of appearances of things. You don't want there to be an appearance of a conflict of interest. So if I'm a director of a series, I don't want to play on it all the time.
Okay.
Because then it looks like I'm just hiring myself.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So
make work available to other people who are wonderful.
So I was helping Lillian select the programs, make arrangements, and etc. It's a very important skill that no one teaches musicians. When we go to Juilliard, I had a business of music class, but no one taught me how to run it as how to do these things. So it's a great thing to do if one has a chance, is to kind of start being involved on the other end of the industry, of the
Helping
business.
others.
Yeah, and then
Yes.
you're helping others and you're learning how it works. It's like in a film, you know, Nicole Kidman and, you know, Reese Witherspoon are also producers. What that means, they have to do the budget, they have to raise the money, they have to negotiate contracts, they have, etc. So you just have much more control over your own destiny when you know these things.
Sure.
And I began helping Lillian basically with that idea, you know, because I was helping everyone, but I was also helping myself to understand how this works. And when Lillian sadly passed away this year, her family and the cultural center asked me if I would take over and run the series as an artistic director, which technically, I mean, I was already kind of doing.
So you're the top guy.
So now
cool.
I unilaterally sort of decide who gets to play. Before it was always Lillian's final sign off. You know, she would have ideas, but then I would suggest, and then she would kind of say, "Oh, right, I like this," or "I don't like that." And now it's just me.
Well, no, it isn't just you. It's all these other musicians and
No, of course.
creating joy for them and the people who get to listen to them.
And you know, when I look at what Milana Strezeva, who is a founder and artistic director of Grand Piano Series, how she does it, her scope is enormous. You know, she brings the world's #1 artists to Naples, and so she negotiates with, you know, power managers, and there's just so much involved. You have to make sure that the programs that people play don't repeat themselves. That you have to remember what was done last year and the year before. Who played what? How did people respond to that? It's, you know, so it's a whole other frame of mind. I would say it's a little bit like Miranda Priestley in Devil Wears Prada. You know, those famous scenes when she shoots down florals, because we've done that in May 2022, whatever. Okay. You know, like, you have to know your stuff inside and out to really successfully curate a concert series and to make choices that it could.
So you're working, and how often, how many hours do you get on a day to play?
It varies from 0 to, I don't know, 8. You know, because it depends on what I'm working on and what are my projects coming up as a performer myself. And
so if something's coming up, you have to.
I practice more.
you
know, I practiced my whole life so much that there's a cumulative effect. So, I mean, unless I really have to practice, I don't have to practice every day.
Okay.
And sometimes it's actually good to take a break. So when I have a bigger breaks between performances and I don't have to be learning something new or maintaining a big concerto, you know, I can just take some time off and
just because you're not practicing, it's still going on in your head.
Well, it's always there. Plus, I teach. Whenever anyone teaches, you can ask any other pianist. I'm sure they will say the same thing. Is that when you're teaching people how to play the piano, and I'm sure the same is true of violin or cello or whatever other instrument, you have to speak through technique, right? You have to explain to the student how to do it. And in doing so, you're kind of mentally practicing, because you're trying to figure out, you know, a solution to a problem. And when you think about it, that is where the problem is solved. A lot of the practicing is not just blunt force. You know, you don't just sit there repeat. I mean, that's how many students begin to practice, but it's unhealthy. You can create a repetitive stress injury.
How does this sound? What happens if I do this?
But at some point, the more your brain kicks in, the better the result, right? The more, so it's thinking about certain things that makes for a better, you know, for a better final result. Not necessarily just spending 8 hours repeating the same passage over and over again.
Yeah. Okay. Was it you who said that teaching is a great way to learn?
Oh, well, I didn't say that. I'm sure many great people said it before me, but I concur. Yes, it is a great way to learn. Yeah. And I find that also, even technically, sometimes if I give a specifically technical lesson and discuss certain things and I just verbalize them, then I sit down at the piano and it just happens, and I was like, well, that's great. I don't even have to practice. I just talked about it and I can do it.
Yeah.
you know.
Okay. I have another question, and I may have asked this of you before. What do you tell children who are frustrated with their work? Or
Well, it'll get better.
the more you do, the better. You'll
Practice
get.
makes perfect.
Yeah.
And in a conceptual way, I'm almost contradicting myself. So just repeating it till you're blue in your face is not necessarily a solution. But if you do it consistently and if you apply your mind to it, it will get better. There is no other way. Right? Then, you know, also it can always be worse, and there are worse things that you can be doing, right? So than practicing music. It's all a point of view, right? And a vantage point of how we look at it. So I just try to remember the optics are very important, right? To remind people that this is, after all, a beautiful thing to do, and it's a joyful thing to do, and we're learning something that is refining a kind of a skill that is just a pleasure to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Right? It brings a joy to the person that does it and to everybody else around them.
Yes.
So there are all these, you know, reasons why. One can always bribe, of course, with sweets and other treats. One can bribe with situational, you know, conditioning, which is what I say to a lot of my, you know, more adult students, you know, grown-ups, teenagers and 20-somethings, that, you know, when you're really good at piano, you know, you're going to be invited everywhere.
Yes.
Because you can steal any party. You can get any date.
Yes.
You can, just because that's, you know, it's, whoever sits down and starts playing the piano.
Happy.
You make people very happy, you grab attention, and even if a child at 8 doesn't necessarily want it or understand it, but at 18 they really want it.
Yeah.
So, and you know, so it's socially a good thing to be able to do.
And the more you do, the better you get.
Of course. And you know, when I meet people of you know, more advanced years that say, I just wish I didn't stop, you know, playing the piano or violin. I wish I didn't quit because it's so great. But, you know, so I mean, I hear that so much from people who regret having stopped, that I use that as an argument for why not to stop with younger people. You know, at the end of the day, I'm not forcing anybody, but but you have to give people full understanding, full disclosure of what they're giving up if they're on the brink of doing it. You know.
Okay. Well, I have had a wonderful time. This is great. So please remember that. Please, if you want to learn more about this wonderful pianist, composer, and educator, KonstantinThePianist.com, or take a look at where is it? GrandPianoSeries.org. Take a look at that. It's lovely. It's a wonderful thing, and I'm convinced that there are other places elsewhere that do the same thing. I hope that's true, and I'm thrilled that you're doing that. And the symphony, AuburnSymphony.com. Please take a look at them. Konstantin, thank you very much for joining me again, and welcome again to California.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back here.
Oh, good.
Thank you, Susan.
Great. Thank you. And I'll see you again.